Hello, my friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. The following is a conversation with Erik Henden, a local, important person in my life, a gentleman that's become a friend, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. He's an airline pilot. He's a mountaineer. He's a rower, and something that we also didn't expect to talk about, but also enjoyed is a little bit of history and a little bit about Air Force flying, because we both share that in common as well. Yeah, based on what you said, it's going to be, the C-17 is going to be way different than the F-16. You said the C-17 is on the backside of the power curve.
Yeah.
And the F-16 is constantly trying to fly, even when you're idle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's, the computer's trying to fly it. So it's hard to land an F-16.
Really?
Yeah, because it's bouncing down the runway. And it's just right at the edge of flying again.
Right.
So I know what you mean.
Yeah, that'd be kind of stressful.
Yeah, it's going fast, and the computer's trying to fly the plane.
Right.
And
probably going quite a bit faster when you land. I mean, how many knots are you flying when you're on average?
Well, if you're light, you might be down at like 150, 160.
Right.
But if you're heavy, you're over 200.
Yeah, that's pretty quick. The only time you're ever landing that fast in a C-17 is if you're like flaps don't come out or something.
Okay.
And you're doing definitely a non-standard landing. And at that point, you're doing a front side landing. But
yeah. So the F-16 sounds like it's on the front side of the curve.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I think pretty much every airplane is. C-17 is very unique.
Is it? And it's so they can do that short
field landings. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an amazing airplane. I mean,
that's pretty cool.
Whoever designed that thing, way smarter than I am.
And it's built by Boeing, right?
Yep.
And it probably
just finished building them recently.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, they closed down the in Long Beach.
Is that where they built them?
Yeah. For decades. I think just like last year, they closed down the plant.
They stopped producing new ones?
Yeah. Kind of sad, but it's end of an era.
What's the new cargo plane?
That's a good question. I think they're really thinking about cargo planes right now, because they just put out a new tanker.
Yeah, I just saw that.
KC-46 and fighters and bombers, right? They just forget the name of it. The new there was the new bomber. The
47?
Is that what it is? Because there's a new stealth bomber and there's a new stealth fighter that just.
I thought it was the 47 because it was the Trump, 47.
Well, Yeah. Oh,
you remember that?
Is that why they named it the 47?
That's what was that was the news story.
That wouldn't surprise me.
And that's why it was such a big, hilarious deal.
That is pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I remember it.
He's a modest guy.
Yeah.
No.
And they're like, my favorite thing about it is that it's 47.
Whatever, as long as it works, I guess. But the fighter just came out. But I think like last year they came out with the new bomber to like replace like the B-2 and stuff. Forget the. I have a hard time remembering.
It was like the Air Raider
numbers,
and I thought it was the 20 something.
Yeah, B-21.
Yeah, B-21.
B-21 is the new bomber, and F-47.
I'm pretty sure it was a 47. I might be wrong though.
Yeah,
but that one, I'm pretty sure it's a Boeing, the 47. And,
I think you're right,
and I think it can be pilot.
I think the bomber is Lockheed Martin,
and the 47 could be pilot, no pilot.
Yeah, well, I mean the days of manned fighter planes are definitely numbered.
Definitely.
I think fighter jets gonna be the first ones to go unmanned.
Definitely.
Probably, right?
Yeah, I just saw Anduril Corporation has a fighter that's pilotless, and it's designed to be a wingman for the F-35.
Oh wow!
So
it's already flying.
Yep. So it serves as it's just a wingman plane. So it's basically probably automatically controlled by the F-35. It just stays in position.
Oh, wow.
And just stays out of the way.
Huh.
And so the F-35 pilot can deploy it.
It's pretty wild.
I know. Yeah.
It's cool. And it's good from a, safety perspective, because hopefully a lot fewer humans will die in combat.
Right.
We're definitely we're entering a weird era in warfighting.
We are.
Star Wars type stuff, you know, like robots fighting robots.
Yeah. Yeah. Our robots against your robots. Who's got better
droids
robots?
and lightsabers are probably right around the corner.
Right. Yeah. I guess the
literally, like, whose robot is better?
Yeah. That's
yeah.
So it's going to come down to chips. Who's got better chips? And and who's got better computing power?
Which is why Taiwan's such a big deal. They make all those microchips there.
Mm.
Yeah, man.
They're making them in Phoenix now.
Yeah, I know they.
That, right?
I think that was one of the bigger like accomplishments that Biden had, right? Like, was the CHIPS Act and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I know Arizona. I think there's 2 or 3 other facilities that they.
Yeah, getting chip manufacturing in the United States is important.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, right? Mm-hmm. Like, everything runs on computers nowadays.
Right.
So. Yeah, I know Arizona is like the main place, but yeah. So hopefully that goes well. I know it takes like a ton of water to do that.
Totally.
Arizona isn't known for their abundance of water.
Well, the one module to make chips is about the size of a shipping container. And it's like $1 billion to make one module.
Wow.
And I thought it was a Dutch company that had they build the tooling for it. And so we had to really do a lot of...
Dutch do a lot of random cool things. We were just there.
Were you?
We did my first time there. We, our Europe trip over spring break, went to London, and then you asked about the ferry. We did a overnight ferry from England to the Netherlands, which was fun once.
Yeah.
The kids loved it. It was just kind of exhausting for the parents, but
sure.
Yeah, we went to Amsterdam, but yeah, the Dutch are very like smart, engineering minded people, I think.
Yep.
Maybe it comes from all the, like the dikes and stuff, right? Like their whole country is like below sea level.
Yeah.
And they have all the windmills, I think a long, long time ago, they had to figure out like how to be engineers to survive.
Right. I mean, the first at-scale shipping industry where they had stocks in the shipping companies and building ships, the shipbuilding industry.
Yeah.
I understand came from there.
Yeah. I mean, they were like the Portuguese first and then the Dutch maybe.
What the Dutch
in terms of like seafarers, yeah.
Yeah, what the Dutch did, that, from my understanding, is that they sold stock in the shipbuilding company so that they could build more ships.
Yeah, what was it, like the East India company or something?
So the idea of selling shares in the company, so they could raise enough capital.
They kind of pioneered the stock market.
Right, exactly.
Which is interesting because then, they owned Manhattan, right? New Amsterdam. And it was sold to, Brits bought it from the Dutch, right? It's just funny. That's where Wall Street is now.
Isn't that fascinating?
That is a really interesting connection, actually.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any, if that's just a coincidence, Seems like it is.
Well, that was a superpower before England.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, like the Portuguese and the Dutch. And then
it was kind of based on naval power.
Then, the Spanish. Right? It was totally based on naval power. And the Spanish, and the French, and the Brits. And the Brits kind of won out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, have you ever seen that, speaking of movies, that Master and Commander movie with Russell Crowe?
I might have seen that.
It's all about just the naval battles between France and England back in the 1700s. Literally, whoever controlled the seas controlled the world. And that's where England won out, because they're an island nation.
Right.
They had the natural security, and they were just better seafarers than anybody else.
Yeah, and that was a long time. I mean, that was probably 1,000 years. Whereas the air power, the battle for air power became a thing, but that only was less than 100
century.
years. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now it's space.
And not really even until World War II.
Right.
Because there were planes in World War I, but I mean, there were guys throwing grenades out of little biplanes, you know, blimps and stuff.
Yeah, and I just heard it was pretty funny. My father-in-law went to Brazil, where what's the airplane manufacturer?
Embraer.
Embraer.
Oh.
So he went down there on a Boeing kind of thing because he was an engineer for Boeing, and they gave him the whole red carpet treatment, and welcome to Embraer, and it was their manufacturing facility, and they have this big museum there, and where they tell everyone that they invented flying.
Really?
Yeah, which makes perfect sense because
maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah, the whole world was testing and
Yeah.
People were dying in plane crashes trying to get off the ground, jumping off boats, jumping off
maybe they
cliffs.
invented it and the guys didn't survive. The Wright brothers were like famously like very good self-promoters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they survived.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of people were dying in airplanes.
And
so maybe somebody in Brazil flew first, but then he died very quickly after.
I can totally see why they have a claim for it, because they weren't communicating with North Carolina, and it probably happened within in the same year,
probably,
or within a few months.
Yeah, it took a long time for news to travel back then,
right? And so
in France too, like they were like aviation pioneers. Like the first balloons were in France.
Yep.
I think there's like with cars too. Like I think there were a lot of people who were like doing the same stuff around the same time, but like Henry Ford and the Wright brothers, and they were the ones who kind of like were just good self promoters. Right?
Yeah, we just had a better PR department.
Yeah, I think like Edison was that way with the light bulb, and what do they say, like fortune favors the bold or whatever. Like guys who really get their names out there, and there's definitely people who that's their mentality, is like, I will go down in history, and they are the ones we learn about in school.
Exactly. That's why all the pithy comments.
That's why people don't like Americans, because we're like such self-promoters. Yeah.
Right. And everything is attributed to like Mark Twain said this, or like Benjamin Franklin said this.
Yeah. I mean, probably 10% of those are actual quotes, right? But
yeah, I remember we talked about Benjamin Franklin when you were talking about Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was like, he's like the most famous Philadelphian of all time. Yeah. I think he was born in Massachusetts. He's buried in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Lived there forever. Obviously, founding father and all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, amazing guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many ways. Kind of like a Da Vinci type, just like polymath.
Yeah. And I just want to,
the Franklin Institute is there.
Okay.
Amazing. If you're ever there, take your kids to the Franklin Institute.
Yeah. I want to, learn more about him. And I understand he had basically a newsletter, right? Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah, Poor Richard's. Yeah. He, I think he started the post office out of Philly. Like he founded the post office.
That's
stuff like that. Yeah. He was like the first postmaster of the U.S. Like really remarkable guy. Yeah. He had his flaws like anybody else, right? Mm-hmm. Famously spent a lot of time in France.
Yeah.
not with his wife. But,
oh, really? Yeah. The most important key features, a lot of these guys, weren't held back at all. You can see that it probably goes hand in hand, with, super ambitious. They're going to have, your biggest strength becomes a weakness, all that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But Benjamin Franklin and Alexander Hamilton, fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think lately with that play and everything, he's become more famous. But yeah, I think he was like pretty much regarded as the smartest guy of all the founding fathers, right? Like he set up our whole economic system, capitalism,
the Federal Reserve,
the Treasury.
He had the concept of borrowing money as a resource, and that is genius. To have the
that wasn't really a thing before him, right?
Right. No.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating for and the key principle for Hamilton, but Benjamin Franklin, I'm not sure, other than just pithy comments about Benjamin Franklin. Do you know what he can be? What thing you said? The post office.
Yeah. Well, he. I mean, the list goes on. I think.
Yeah.
Poor Richard's, post office. Mm-hmm. I want to say he had a lot to do with like fire insurance and stuff like that, where like people would have their homes protected. So like if you go around Philadelphia, there's
wood homes, right?
Well, I don't know if there's too many now, but like if you look on the outside of all these row houses in Philly, you'll see a little symbol on a lot of them, like a oval metallic symbol, where it basically meant this home has fire insurance. So if it's on fire, the fire department would look for that. I think that was his thing.
Wow.
But obviously, like he was a key player in the revolution.
Diplomacy too, probably. Right?
Diplomacy. He was kind of our original like Secretary of State almost.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Like him and Jefferson.
Right.
I think were the two guys who spent a lot of time in like France, which obviously if it wasn't for France, we would have probably lost the Revolutionary War, right?
Yep. Exactly.
So I think diplomacy.
And Louisiana Purchase.
And then just the city of Philadelphia, I think he had a lot to do with like
the city of Philadelphia.
Well, that was the first most prominent city, really. Philly and New York, but I mean, Philly was the capital of America for 10 years, right? Like a lot of people don't realize that. But while they were building DC, I think New York was the first capital, then Philly, then DC. So from like 1790 to 1800, I think Philly was the capital, which was kind of like the most crucial time in the history of America because, we won the Revolutionary War, but our country was kind of a mess after that because we didn't have a constitution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are things you learn when you live in Philly. You can just nerd out on American history, but like we,
for about 10 years, we
had the Declaration of Independence, but then I think the Constitutional Congress was like when, I can't remember, 1780, 1790, around there. So that's when we really like put everything into writing. Like this is our Constitution that our nation will be built on. Because the Declaration of Independence was just like, we're not part of England anymore,
That's just when it started.
Right. But that's not like it's not like a Magna Carta type thing where you can like base a nation on the Declaration of Independence, right?
Yeah.
But the Constitution is like the living document where it's like obviously still going, but
that's fascinating.
So like Philly was like the capital, the Constitutional Congress. Yeah. Like Washington lived there. Like if you go to Philly, you can see where his house was in Philly.
Really?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And it was all just while DC was being turned from a swamp into a city. Why people like call DC a swamp. It's literally built on a swamp.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, that period of history is so interesting.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people wanted the capital to be in New York.
Well, I think it was the first capital.
Or wanted to stay in New York.
Yeah, they wanted to because it was like Philly and New York were like the big, and Boston were like the big cities.
Competing, right? Cities.
But like Boston, though, like I don't think was ever quite on the same level, right? But like New York, yeah. I don't know if they wanted to like keep like finance and politics separate, maybe, or because New York was always like the financial center, still is. I don't know. There's probably a book about it.
Yeah, that'd be something that's great.
If there's not a book,
there you go.
Book we should write.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
the one thing between when was the Revolutionary War won? When was it completed?
Well, 1776 was the declaration. I think the war ended in 80. It was like 4 or 5 years. So like 80, 81. And then like the 1780s were just like chaos, right? Because like we won the war, but then it's like, that was almost like the easy part. Then you have to like form a coherent nation and get all these like states to actually work together. And they were all just like colonies, right? Like, effectively.
And who were the leading minds at the time? Was it Franklin and Alexander
like
Hamilton?
Washington, Hamilton, Jefferson, Franklin, John Adams, right? Which, and if you want a good show to watch that actually doesn't take that long, the John Adams show on HBO.
Okay.
Adams was he, I'm trying to remember, was he the first vice president? I forget, but he was the second president, right? Adams and then Jefferson. But those two, Adams and Jefferson, like they kind of like competed their whole lives, but respected each other. They died. It's like one of the coolest facts of all time. They both died on July 4th, the same day.
They've died on the same day?
Same day on July 4th. Isn't that cool? Like two of the, most prominent founding fathers. Two of the top 5 dudes, right? In early American history. Yeah, they both died on July 4th of all days. In like, I don't know, 18 something. But
and how old are these guys when they died? Were they like 60s?
They were both pretty old. Yeah, Jefferson and Adams were both pretty old. I think Washington was 70s.
That's pretty old for
he lived
that
a long time. Franklin was very old. Franklin was like 80s. But
that's like modern day centenarian.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be in your 80s
you got to watch out what you eat.
That's genetics.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Like for back then, that's just genetics. Nowadays we like know about health and stuff. But back then, I mean, they literally drank like whiskey in the morning.
Right.
Because water wasn't clean enough,
Exactly.
But no, I think guys like Ben Franklin, it was just for luck and genetics.
Yeah.
But he was probably a pretty active guy, he probably got his steps in. But yeah, I mean, it's a crazy time, right? Like I don't think it was till like DC was built and we had the Constitution, things kind of like settled down a little bit. Then there was the War of 1812. England burned down the White House. And like, I don't know. That's why I like history, because it makes you realize like there's never been a calm, really peaceful time ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess like the 90s were kind of chill, but not completely. Yeah. Like in America, it was pretty chill, but we're still wars. There's always something going on.
Yeah.
So, people are freaking out nowadays, right? But
exactly.
Like, I think it's largely a function of like the internet and social media.
You know what, Eric, you're exactly right. We've never had so much peace in the world in the big picture.
Like overall.
Yeah, overall.
Yeah. There's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be tragedies.
Right.
I don't know.
But we've kind of, for the most part, there's not, people aren't dying from starvation.
Most places.
In most places.
There's some examples, unfortunately, still, which there shouldn't be. Like, there's enough food in the world, right? That's one of the most like tragic things. There's plenty of food globally. Yeah.
So if I were to go to Philadelphia, and you were going to, right? Like,
oh man. I mean, just like Old City, which is where all that stuff happened that we're just talking about. It's
spend
like
a couple days.
You can go to, Independence Hall, which is where they signed the Declaration of Independence. You can go do tours in there. There's a whole like park there where the Liberty Bell is, the Constitution Center. The art museum is incredible. Tons of good restaurants and tons of breweries around there. Philly's known for like, I think they eat more cheese than any city in America. So tons of good cheese and cheese steaks and I mean, Philly's an amazing city. There's so much culture there. It really has a lot of the same stuff as New York. It's more walkable and it's more affordable. So I love Philly. I mean, it's like any city, there's rough parts, right? Just, but if you stay to like downtown Center City, we lived in Fishtown, which is a really cool area. Fishtown, Northern Liberties, Center City, the university area is super cool, or like the University of Pennsylvania is. It's a nice area. There's a ton of colleges there, a ton of hospitals. It's a world-class city. And I think it just had a bad rap for a lot of years because of like, I don't know, like the depictions in like Rocky and stuff. And it was rough, like just like New York or Chicago, like Philly, it was pretty rough for some decades, right? Like 70s, 80s. Into the 90s, and then it, like a lot of American cities, it started turning the corner, and we loved it there. It was awesome.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode with Erik Henden. One of the things I really enjoyed goes with this quote: "Treat failure like a scientist. Each attempt is an experiment. Each mistake is a clue. You're not failing, you're refining. And I'll see you guys on the other side."